So I made this video around about 2-3 months ago, and it's just a video showing you a step-by-step guide on how to insulate the van from the floor all the way to the roof, and I hope it helps. So today I'm putting in the Celotex foam board, and what I've had to do is make a stencil out of cardboard, but there is a little bit of a problem, because in a Mercedes Sprinter it's currently raining, which is pretty shit as well. But in a Mercedes Sprinter, the boards are going to fit in this area here. So there's going to be 6 different boards all down. These ones here have got a depth of 50mm. This one's got a depth of 50mm, but then it starts to get shallower. So by the time it gets up to here, this is actually only 25mm, coming down to not even 25mm at the back here. So what I've had to do is 2 50mm boards at the front, and then 2 50mm boards in the middle, and the rear ones are going to be 25mm. But then these grooves need to be cut in a diagonal shape, because I don't know if you can see it, but they're not actually straight lined. So they're actually 2cm sunk in, the bottom's 6cm, and the sides are 3cm respectively. So now I'm just doing that. When the first one's done, I'll show you the end product, and then I'll show you how I'm going to fit it, which is a bit different than other people I've seen on the internet. I also see a lot of people use jigsaws to cut the foam board, but I find it a lot easier with just a Stanley knife, and this is a tiny little Stanley knife, and it cuts through like for a knife through butter. Right, so the major problem here was that the board wasn't wide enough, so we had to cut it into 2 parts. And now, normally, you'd stick some glue on the back or adhesive and stick it to the side. But I read, and also seen, that you can get these stick pins, and you just place the foam onto the stick pins and then put a stopper on the end. So I'm going to do that now, and if it goes wrong, there's nothing I can do, because once it's on, it's on. Alright, okay, so that's it. It's taken about an hour to do one. So the stick pins actually didn't come through, so we had to put 2 on the little risen area here. So there's 4 that are sticking it into place, and then 2 on the risen area. And after that, the pin comes through, and then you just bend off the pin and then place a little bit of aluminium tape to seal it off. Now, as for the gaps, we've got some foam spray, which is going to fill in all this gap here and all these gaps here. Now, I don't know if to do that now and just see how it goes, because I actually have no idea. Apparently it expands like over 150 times its size. Okay, after yesterday's van build went to shit because I didn't have the correct tools, I learned a lesson, and I went to the car boot sale this morning and picked up like a cake trimmer, which is worth a treat because it now cuts the foam board so much easier. So that's a tip that I found on YouTube somewhere. I can't remember where it was, but fuck me, it's made life so much easier. I also picked up a Black & Decker Scorpion, which is a jigsaw and a saw for when I do the wood. And now, so it took us about 2.5 hours to do one board, and I've just done a board then in 10 minutes. So that's the sort of difference it's made. I've also learned that I'm trying to cut all the foam boards perfectly to shape inside. And it's actually better if you just take about 5mm off each side and then use the filler to fill it in, because trying to get it in perfect, it's not going to happen. And I noticed that the pins that I used weren't long enough to go through the foam board, and now they should be. Well, I'm about to find out now, but let's hope. I'm going to quickly show you how to install this. So there's the stick pin, literally sticky as fuck. Put it into the corner, make sure that the pin's stuck and they aren't coming back off. That's the first. Right, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 corners are sorted out, and then 1 in the middle. Right, okay, then just line up the foam board, and obviously watching the spikes, because you're going to push through, push it in. to place, like so, without spiking yourself. Okay, and to finish it off, you simply stick the end of the pin on, push it down, and when it's down, that won't go. Once the pins are in place, hammer them down with a hammer. Alright, and the last step is just place some aluminium tape to create the seal over the pins. Make sure that's sealed off. And that's it done. Okay, so I'm going to do exactly the same with the roof. There's the first two parts done, and then I've just cut it out perfectly and actually done it in two parts because there's a bit of a bend in the roof. So if I did one straight bit, it'd just snap it in half. This is the first time that I felt like I've done something in the van. So all the insulation's now installed on the sides and even the roof. So for the roof, I did exactly the same as I've done on the walls. So with the pins, okay, and then sealed them off. 4 pins in each plate. Plates are cut in half. So then I've sealed up the middle part. Okay, but they weren't always cut in half. Okay, this one here was a full plate. And then 3 little boards there. And as for this one here, okay, I didn't want to waste the board. I've still got quite a lot of it, but I didn't want to waste it because I've still got to do the floor. But yeah, 8 hours of work. It's a lot longer than YouTube videos. So I'm starting to do the insulation on the bottom panels. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out. So I've rolled it out to give it a bit of expansion and to let it, I don't know, fill it with air. And then what I've done is I've cut it out. Actually, this that I got here is perfect. It's actually 23 inches long. And these panels are exactly 22.5 inches, which is perfect. However, what I've come across is these scissors don't fucking cut this at all, and it's just taken me around about 4 minutes to just cut this little bit off. So I think when you are cutting this, you need to get some sort of cloth scissors and not just paper scissors, because this is going to take me a while. I'm going to see if the standing knife's going to do a little bit better. So the standing knife didn't work, so I'm going to have to do the scissors for now until I actually buy some clothing scissors. But all I need to do here is, once I've got the strips out, and then just going to feed it down and pack all of these areas in here. So I'm going to work on the areas that you can't get to, so behind here, underneath here, and because I've got so much foam board left, if I run out of this stuff, which I shouldn't because I've got this roll plus an extra one, then I can just put the foam board in these areas here, which might save me a little bit of money. We'll see. So what I've had to do is actually double up this because it's quite thin. So what I've done is I've doubled it up and then shoved it in there. A point to note is wear some gloves, because these edges here are quite sharp, the parts that aren't painted. That's the first part done. I went into work and got some medical scissors, so now it's a little bit easier to cut. It's still quite hard, but I opened the door before and it's quite warm outside. Right, okay, so I met some guy the other day who told me about the problem that Mercedes Sprinter had, and with the outside skirts, they get clipped in, and as you can see, they leak. So when we put this stuff here in there, it'll get soaking wet. So what I've done is just siliflexed all of these plastic bindings, which hopefully should waterproof it. So now I can start filling in these. Right, just a quick one on the door. So the door was the trickiest one because I didn't want to put anything like fixed apart from this area here. So I've just filled it up with loads of spare Celotex and insulation. I've tore it all apart and filled it in all the holes. Yeah, I haven't stuck any of it like down permanently. That's because of all these wires here. Like if anything goes wrong, I need to pull it all apart and then fix whatever's happened to the door. Especially with the lock systems that I've just made a little area for here. Just for the rear doors, I've also done exactly the same. I haven't glued or put any adhesive on any of this so I can pull it back out in case I have to change any of the lights in the rear doors. The window I'm leaving because I'm going to put 2 rear windows in, so I'll have a little bit of light at least. Also, when I'm parked up next to a lake or something, I'd like to look at it. And then I'm going to do the same with the top one, and then move on to this. I don't actually know how to take this one off. I'll figure it out. But as for these, it's literally turn 90 degrees and then pull them out, and they slide straight out. It's pretty easy. Just so you can see, you literally pull it out and then squeeze it in. It's a lot harder with just one hand. And once it's pushed in, you can then force that in, and then all you need to do is a flathead screwdriver to turn it 90 degrees, and then it's locked into place. And that's it back on. Right, really bad lighting, but this is what I've done this morning. Okay, so I've just built like a little frame. Well, I haven't actually built it, I've just been cutting it out and placing it. And I'm hoping this is right. So after this frame is going to go in, you see the Celotex, I'm going to cut it out perfectly so it fits in between. And then I'm going to get some self-tapping screws and screw these parts in. Maybe 1 screw, and then Gorilla Glue the bottoms of them. Once that's in, I'll wait for that to dry, Celotex in, and then I need to put the Reflectix up the top of this and around the wheel arches. So that's the jobs for today. However, I still have a working job to do as well, so it might take a lot longer than I think. Before lunchtime, so what I've done here is I've built the frame round this, round the door. Here's the 25mm that I've had to actually shorten, because you'll see that it's not actually up on the tip. So I've shortened that, cut a lip out the end, and that there fits in. And I might just have to sand down that little edge here. As for there, from there I'm going to put 2 more beams down the side, and then that's where it's going to end there. And then once this is in, I need to mark down where all these, where the frame's down, and then start gluing it down. But before the glue, I need to start cutting out the Celotex in each place, which hopefully I've got enough for. I think I might have even got extra. Okay, the frame's finally done. So what I've done is labelled it up so I can now take it apart and finish off the rest of the stuff that I need to do. So I've just labelled it 1A, 1B and 1C, then 2. So literally I can put it back together as a jigsaw, and then naming the door parts separately. And there we go. Now I just need to put the insulation through these tubes, which I bought some metal wire yesterday, some metal gardening wire, and hopefully that'll work. We're all about to find out anyway. Okay, this is probably one of the hardest things I've done so far on my own. So what it is, I've bought this wire. You need to put this nib on here, because it took me about 20 minutes to feed it through without that nib, and it's a lot easier with that nib on. So bend the wire at the end, and then feed it through the supporting beam at the top. And at the end, make a hook, like a fishing hook. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to pull it with one hand and feed it through with the other. Okay, and you'll see like it's one of those toys where you've got the bit of wire and the silly snake on it. It's going to look a bit like that. And now all I'm going to do is pull this through while feeding this side through with my left hand. I'm going to pull on that side with my right hand. And there we go. Now it is my 3rd attempt, so I'm getting a lot faster at it. But yeah, it's done. Right, okay, I finished work early this morning, so I've just started on putting the Reflectix around the bottom of the van. I've started with the wheel arches first. So as you can see, I bought some double-sided sticky tape, stuck it onto the wheel arch, and then pressed down the Reflectix on the wheel arch. And then you can see the sides and all the areas here where I've just used aluminium tape to seal it up. That's just literally to create a vapour barrier so the water doesn't get through to the metal. And then I'm going to use the rest of this to go around the bottom of the van, and then again seal up all the sides, and just put patches of double-sided sticky tape that I can stick the Reflectix to the metal of the van, so then I can start putting the frame to the floor in. Okay, so we're on to the screwing the wood frame down onto the floor. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm putting Gorilla Glue on the bottom of the frame. That's to stop the vibration because I don't want this frame to vibrate when I'm driving. After that, I'm fixing it in with self-tapping screws, and I'm drilling a hole. Someone's told me to drill a hole into the frame first so it avoids the wood from splitting, and then countersunk it with a drill part so that it'd fit nice and flush. Obviously when I first started I didn't have a clue how to do it, but I've figured it out as I've gone along. And then I've drilled it in and it's gone through. But you just need to make sure underneath the van that nothing is going to be penetrated by the screws. As you can see, so far so good. However, when I start getting over there where the fuel tank is, I've really got to be careful because these screws come down probably about 20mm. So you can see that I spent all last night just finishing up before I did this, just painting up any scratches that I've done throughout the work, or scratches that were left there. So I've just repainted those to stop them from rusting. And then you can see now the Reflectix is now on the lower side of the panel, on the panels. So it should be ready to go. Once this frame's in, I'm going to start cutting the foam board. And I've got all day to do this, and then I'm off for 2 weeks. So right, so it's finally finished. It took me around about 4 hours, mostly because I did it on my own. Like, if you had a second person helping you out, checking where the nails were going through and where the screws were going through, I'm sure it'd be a lot faster. However, it wasn't that fast. Okay, it took me quite a while. It's all done now though. There's one thing that I had to do. One of my friends, Dan's, noticed that this here had too much of a gap underneath, so I've just put a little, maybe I think it's about 3mm spacer in between that, just so you can now step on it and it's safe and it won't crack. The door, because it's on the ledge, this had to be drilled through, not with the self-tapping screws. That wasn't going through, just because the metal was a little bit thicker. And the end of the door, the little thing that the little bit of wood that I put on the end, I've just Gorilla Glued it to the floor instead of actually screwing it, because it was too thin and it would have just split the wood. So now I'm going to show you what I'm going to do after I've hoovered all the floor. So literally I've just cut out the Celotex now. I've just used a large Stanley knife to cut it out. It's a little bit easier, and it slots perfectly in place, as you can see. And now I'm going to do that with the whole, the rest of the van. And once that's done, I'm going to tape up the edges with the aluminium foil tape, and then that there should create the vapour barrier on the floor, and then make sure that the sides are all taped up as well. So I'm going to start that, but I'm running out of time. No joke, no matter how well I measure this, it will never go into place first time, and I have to recut it. Just to show the update that I've done, all these the wooden parts here, what I'm doing now is using aluminium tape and just covering up all the areas. So I've only got a little bit left to do, and as you can see I've done most of the back, but loads of rubbish. So be prepared with loads of bin bags when you're doing this part. And then I'm going to start doing the side bits and just make it all, I'm going to sort all this area out here, which will just create another vapour barrier, which will stop water getting through. Okay, aluminium tape is the stickiest tape I've ever come across, but I finally finished it. So it's all sealed, the vapour barrier is in all along the bottom, ready for the plywood to go on top, which I should be able to get tomorrow, depending on if we can get this fuel tank back in tomorrow or not. I got told off by my friend. I bought this for the floor, and I've just put this one in now. It's really windy, so when you're trying to carry this stuff, okay, do it with 2 people, not just with one, because I'm all over the place. My cutting isn't that good. Okay, so I was maybe a centimetre or 2 off, and I also was being a bit silly here, and I sliced through, and then I realised that I need to cut circular edges, but it was 90 centimetres off for the wheel arch, and then I'm just going to create a box around the wheel arch to go on top of it, so in the storage I can put stuff on top of the wheel arches without damaging them. And now I've just got to measure out this side, and that's done. Put it in that front, take it all off and screw it down onto the battens on the floor. Now something that I'd do differently is I've been working on the van since putting down the foam, and as you can see I put fuckloads of holes in it, pissing around, putting the wood in. So I would get the wood, put all this down first, and then put your floor in straight away. Okay, don't wait a couple of days like I have, because now I'm going to have to get aluminium tape and seal up all these holes again, which has just wasted a lot more of my time. And I'm done. It's taken like 2 hours on my own, and I've fucked up twice, but I think it looks neat. Now I've just got to glue it down and screw it in. Done. Right, and just while I'm waiting, I've just quickly made sure that these are all watertight. All the screws from a couple of days back that went through the bottom to secure the battens to the floor, they're now all watertight, so I've just used silicone around them. Again, please subscribe, like, share the video to anyone that you think might be able to use it, or to anyone who's planning on doing the van, or to someone who might be interested in this sort of stuff. So I hope you enjoy it.